Well, thank you very much for staying with us. Senator, let's talk about the issue of, the expectations that there might be demonstrations tomorrow over the, prices of fuel here in the country. But talking about just demonstrations generally, we've had demonstrations here in the country, and now there's, talk about the reparations. And the Kenya Human Rights Commission did, has given out a 7-day window for public participation in regards to matters of reparations.
I've seen it.
But one of the biggest concerns is that, these reparations, as far as they will go, they will not bring back the lives of, those who lost their lives. But there's also the other concern of, those who committed these atrocities being held accountable, because giving these families money is one thing. But what about those who committed these atrocities? I mean, where's justice at the end of the day?
First of all, I don't understand the foundational basis. Although it's a good thing that people should be indemnified for losses they suffer. They cannot be compensated, really. Just give some indemnity. It's just an indemnity. I cannot compensate them. So that they'll be indemnified. But you see, the bigger picture is we need a law if the state is willing to compensate victims of crime. Because even what happens in the community, there are victims of crime.
Okay.
So you cannot take one category of victims of crime over others. If somebody came and messed you up and is arrested by the police, you will find that when they are prosecuted, they are jailed, you hardly have a way of getting compensated from them. So compensation for victims of crime is an area we need to look at seriously, beyond the tokenism that I'm seeing from the Kenya Human Rights Commission. And it should be in law with a clear criteria of how you are going to compensate these people. It has to be clearly spelled out in law, and maybe with some judicial intervention, not just administrative intervention. But the whole concept for me to me when I look at it, it's like the concept of indemnifying victims of crime. Now, when we take the victims of demonstrations as the only victims of crime who should be compensated, you get somebody can be walking on the road here, you get mugged, okay? You get mugged. The muggers are never found. You are supposed to have been protected by the state. The state told you cannot arm yourself. If you walked around with a weapon today, you'll be arrested. You're not supposed to be armed. In very exceptional places, you can apply for a gun and be given, but also it is given on the requirements are basically that you have to be part of the elite. The hoi polloi on the street cannot be given a gun to work with. So when these people are hammered by criminals on the street, there's no compensation. Unless the state is accepting that it was behind the maiming of these people, and so it was an act of the state, and therefore the state is, without taking a plea of being guilty, trying to put some balm on the wound. That would be a way of looking at it. But at the heart of it, we must have a debate on victims of crime. You have denied me to be armed. You have to protect me. If I get hammered, you have a duty to compensate me for my injuries, the suffering I have.
Okay.
If you look at even at the Constitution, Article 238, it's very clear that the national security is about protecting the individual, their property, their rights, and things like those. There are other national interests.
But the key concern is about justice, Senator, because what precedence does it set if, there are police excesses today, for example, and people are shot dead, but at the end of the day, they know these families will be compensated and there will be no justice. What about taking these people to court, holding them accountable? Is it an issue of, our judiciary? How can we go about that?
Now, you see, the courts have to be moved. I wouldn't blame the judiciary for this. The courts have to be moved, and the courts move on the law and the evidence. And I think the issue is that we need to look seriously at the question of policing, because if the crimes were committed, unless taking compensation as a cover-up will not be acceptable. The assumption would be that these are two different things. The compensation is a civic act, but the criminal act should still also take place. The police officers who are responsible for this, it was a repressive state sometimes uses non-state actors You could find some of the people who are doing this criminal are not necessarily policemen. They could be hooligans who are masquerading as police and doing all the manner of things they are doing. So we should be able to, where they are identified also, the criminal aspect of it, that the perpetrators of the crime are dealt with, is important. Right now, there's a case in Australia. The most decorated living Australian war veteran is facing 4 life sentences because they say that when he was in a state of Afghanistan, I forget a bit, he's supposed to have killed civilians. And I've traced it back to him as decorated as he is. He has been prosecuted, he has been found guilty, he's appealing. Nobody's above the law. Okay. And basically that's what we should have here, that if you are found to have gone against the law, you should be taken to task. Your feet should be held to the fire.
One of the key concerns is the slow pace of these cases because, for example, the killing, the shooting of the mask vendor during the Sabasaba demonstrations, the case is still in court. We're almost 1 year, commemorating 1 year since that particular demonstration, but that case has not yet concluded.
That and many other cases. There are so many cases hanging there. There's also a question of our judicial officers being few. There are few. If you just go and sit in a magistrate's court, I don't want to be an apologist for them, but this is a reality. Go and sit in a magistrate's court and see the kind of lists they have, the cases they have. These people are heavily overworked, even the judges. Mm-hmm. So we need to expand the judiciary. We need to get much more manpower into the judiciary. I think our judiciary right now needs to be expanded by 3. I think we're having a third of what we need. We need to do it by times 3, especially in the magistrate, in the magistrate's court, in the High Court, and in the Court of Appeal. We need to expand that power so that some of these cases can move. You'll find judges are handling too much work. And so when a matter comes and maybe somebody is not ready to move, a judge may not be able to say, come back tomorrow. He'll say maybe that the next date I have on my list is 3 months or 4 months down the line. Come back 3 or 4 months down the line. Okay. So if we had more judges and more magistrates, some of that would not be happening. That's on the side of the judiciary. So I would not really blame the slow pace of that. But also on the investigative side, we had the internal affairs unit of the police. The internal affairs unit, you see this, we have tended to make a very big mistake, that we are relying on IPOA to fix the police. You must remember that the police is a uniformed service. IPOA is civilians. There's no way civilians will effectively oversight an armed police. And that's why in the structure they had put in something they call the internal affairs unit. The internal affairs unit of the police was policemen trained, and most of them are FBI trained, very well trained, to be able to police policemen. Just like you have got a military police in the military, there was a unit to police policemen, and this unit was highly trained and properly done. When this government came into power, they dismantled that unit, they starved it of money, and they transferred the experienced officers out of the unit to far-off flanked places, and they left only a shell. This unit is one unit. If you remember, there were some Indians who came in and they were killed and the bodies were never found during the elections. This is the unit that cracked that case. So that internal affairs unit is one that needs to be brought back, beefed up, and they'll be able to police the police effectively.
Would you deem that particular move by the regime as deliberate?
Yeah, it was a deliberate move so that they could blind those who are trying to oversight the police. That unit had begun performing very well.
Okay, because of time, let's move forward, and let's talk about something that started way back, even during the demonstrations last year, the issue of goonism, the culture of which is actually cropping up, and we've seen it intensify this particular year. And the concern, Senator, is that these goons are financed or oiled by the political class. We're heading into 2027. The political temperatures are rising.
I will just invite you to, before I condemn the people who get mobilized, the puppets, I want to look at the puppeteers. Who owns those goons? And if you look at how those goons are, if you look at the political leadership, they are virtually goons on both sides. Mm-hmm. So they are just a mirror image. So when things that come out of our mouth, things that we're able to utter without even blinking an eye. So when you have got that kind of, you are wired to be a goon, and you are in a high office, and the office adds, the office does not contain you in any way, then we are developing that culture. And so I think it is, I would not blame one side. The political class just has to shape up, go back to the gentlemen, and let us begin fighting, discussing policy. If you listen to our rallies all over today, when you listen, even as much as I've said I've been quiet, I don't think anybody has said anything beyond what that has filled the space. You find that no policy issue is coming out from the president, no policy issue is coming out from any quarter. It is just excitement, it's just name calling, it's just threats.
Body shaming.
Yeah, just stamping. But just to sit down and say, this country is here, I've analyzed this is the problem, we need to fix this thing. When I talked about plumbing, we see the plumbing we need to do to get this country functioning. Nobody is doing that. Everybody is just a hooligan, everybody is a goon. Listen to what is coming out. People are just dancing, people are just jumping around, people are just doing whatever. So there's hardly any sensible narrative coming out saying that this country is here, we need to do ABCD to move it here. It is just a lot of personalized, very, very personalized and petty fights that do not contribute really to the well-being of this country. And if you look at it, I've always used this analogy that the Kenyan political situation is whereby you have got jailers and prisoners.
Okay.
And you find that the war, most of the time, the annual 5 years that come about, the prisoners have an opportunity to choose the chief jailer. So the jailers get into a frenzy, fighting each other, trying to say that, okay, if you elect me the chief jailer, I will allow you more time in the sun, I will do ABCD, but nobody is out to break the jail. So when you get an attempt to do a jailbreak, by maybe sobering up, these people will not allow it. So the jailers fight who will be the chief jailer, and once they finish, should anything really serious threaten the prison, they will all come together to protect that prison, to make sure that the prisoners remain prisoners.
Okay, because of time, briefly, Senator, there are concerns about these goons, because how can we end this culture? Because if you look back, when there was violence in the country, violence was the order of the day, even during past elections, there are concerns about what might happen as we head to the general election. So how do we tackle this issue and ensure
the issue for me is that there are very many desperate people in this country, poor, no jobs and whatever. In fact, today I was watching Senator Kajwang in Homa Bay saying that people who go to Mujengo earn between 300, I think 300 to 500 shillings, but the goons are paid 1,000 shillings each. So who hires the goons? I think if we are sincere as leadership of this country, if we don't hire those fellows, they will not go to the street to harass anybody. So for me, I'm more concerned about the people who are hiring the goons, and it could be both sides, but for me, most of it is that the state could be behind it, because I cannot forget the images I saw of goons walking alongside police officers. That was the lowest moment I've seen. So there's a possibility that the state, the government side, is sponsoring these goons, and it should stop doing that, because most of the time unpopular regimes act through non-state actors, because that way then they are able to remove themselves from the chaos. They require chaos to thrive, but they cannot put state actors to do the chaos, so they look for non-state actors to perpetuate the chaos so that they can say we are not to blame, and yet they are behind it. So I would like to see the government cracking down, taking stern action, and no politician should ever be identified as having sponsored goons. And if you are found to have sponsored goons, then there's no business for you to be a leader in this country.
Okay, if you're saying they could be probably sponsored by the state, then would you say the state is probably capitalizing on its failure to create employment? Because one of the key concerns that people attribute to the rise in the culture of goonism is the rate of unemployment here in the country.
Of course, like even if you just walk on the street, if you have got 10,000 shillings in your pocket and you are walking around Tomboya Street, that area where there are many people on the top, and then there's maybe some mob justice, you will not run there and begin kicking. You will hold on to your money and try to walk away. But if you have got nothing in your pocket, you will get entertainment, you will join the fray. So, and I go back to 1967, Pope Paul VI wrote an encyclical where he said, the new name of peace is development. If you develop people, if you make people wealthy, you make whatever, some of these cultures will fall away. People will not be attracted to that. So what you say that the level of unemployment and the hopelessness in society makes it easy for people to be mobilized in that direction. Okay. So that one is a major factor. So if we really want peace, as the Pope said, the late Pope said, let us develop this country.
Fair enough. Because of time, Senator, let's talk about the real issue here. You've talked about the state and how probably the government has failed to undertake its mandate, make sure the pledges they made are implemented. You appointed a committee 18 months ago to go through across the country to collect views, and then you were supposed to make a decision based on their findings. Yeah. So 18 months later, that time will be lapsing.
I think this is the 17th month. When I appointed them, people thought it was too long a time, but I had done my mathematics. I like being very scientific and realistic. So they are now writing their report, and we are expecting that this May, when the 18 months lapse, we should be able to come up with that report. And again, as I gazetted them, I'll gazette the report, and I'll gazette the findings. And then now from there, if they have given me the go-ahead to run for president, I'll formally come out and begin my campaign. If they say the Kenyans are not ready for your ideas as president, then I'll say, okay, where do we go? But I hope they'll give me the clearance.
So far, so good. What do you think? You'll be on the ballot?
Well, I have the desire to be on the ballot, but I chose these people to give me a reality check. I don't want to just run for the sake of running.
Have they probably given you a preliminary report in regards to their findings?
There have been preliminary reports before, various areas, where there have been reports, this and that, here and there, all positive, but I'm waiting for the global report and the proper analysis of what it is. And I also have developed a very, very clear agenda of what needs to be done to fix this country, what I'm calling plumping the broken tap instead of mopping. Keep on mopping the floor that gets wet from the leaking tap. So we have done a lot of that. For example, on the cabinet, you have come up with a cabinet of 14 ministries, very clearly done, well spelled out. You have done that. The treasury, you have designed a very clear national treasury, taking money from the president and things like those. Things that you want to do in the first 3 months in office, if we are to get the office, and things that will radically change this country for the better, so that we restore institutional power to run this country, and also unleash the technocrats in this country. We've got very good technocrats in this country. Unleash them to deal with our challenges. Then the politicians remain to rally the public and to sort of do stuff like that.
Fair enough. So if you will be on the ballot, we do know that the formation of coalitions is very crucial here in the country in terms of heading into the general election. So are you looking at probably working with other leaders, CJ Emeritus, David Maraga, probably the Linda Mwananchi faction?
One fellow, if I may use Swahili, mimi huuza sera, siuze sura. So if it's sera and you have got ideas and you have got a proper vehicle, it doesn't have to be me driving it. My interest is what kind of vehicle is going to be built. The driver comes next second. But once you begin selling just yourself as the product, I want to be a salesman. I don't want to be the product. So I want to be a salesman, and if anybody else is a better salesman for the same product, let them be the salesman, let them drive it forward. But let us first of all craft a vehicle before crafting a driver. The problem we have is that we think we can get a messiah. And that's why I said earlier on, for as long as the president controls money in this country, it will be very difficult to get sober leadership. We must take the money away and put it under the control of professionals and let the president come in, propose his budget, propose his agenda, let it be trade-off with the parliamentarians in parliament, let us craft a budget, come up with a balanced budget, and let the budget be the tool for development in this country, not proximity to power. And let there not be possibility of getting money from the consolidated fund. I want to give you an example.
Briefly, kindly.
Yes. Right now, there's a question I raised in the Senate in May, because there's something that the Treasury produces every month. It's called a statement of actual revenue and net expenditure issues. That statement, if you want to look at the rot that's going on in this country, be reading that statement because somebody in the Treasury is doing a good job. For example, the salary of judges in January 2025, judges and other people, their salary shot up by 19.6 billion shillings from 301 million shillings that are paid, the judges, the president, and whatever. It shot up that much. Then in February, it went back to 301 million shillings. I asked the question in the Senate, who took this 19.6 billion shillings? And remember, lecturers, I think, are demanding 7 billion. They're on strike. Doctors were demanding CBOs 4 billion. Yes, that's 11 billion. Yeah, yes. On this 19 billion being just taken out from the consolidated fund,
okay,
not approved by the control of budget, not in any budget, you don't see where it went, and that money disappears. So that is the danger of having a porous treasury. Let us get the money, the treasury locked up and run like a bank by professionals, and the only way you get money out of it is through the budget and the control of budget. The president will cease being a lion or a grizzly bear to a pussycat, and you will be able to take care of the rats in the house.
Okay.
Not to eat the people in the house. So we need to get the president whittled back to what it's supposed to be. Take the money away from the president.
Okay.
There's no other solution.
But just to be, to go straight to the point, because that is one of the concerns from Kenyans on social media. Will you be forming a coalition with like-minded leaders?
I think let the agenda speak. If there will be an agenda that marries another agenda, it will be there. But just to join somebody because Omtatah is here and then they like saying Omtatah Maraga. Omtatah is here, Maraga is there. And then maybe Maraga is going to South Africa, Omtatah is going to Cairo. How do you make a relationship? But if we are all going to South Africa, to Cape Town, or we are both going to Cairo, then there can be a meeting of minds. Me, what I want to see is the vehicles. And I'm telling you up to now, nobody has put an agenda on the table. And me, if I'm going to run, I will be different. They announce I'm going to put an agenda on the table and say, okay, these are the 5 things that have to happen for this country to move forward. Not to say me, I come from which region, not to say me, I like whatever, not to say I like whatever. I'll say, this is the agenda that needs to be done. And if anybody does this agenda, irrespective of where the person comes from, irrespective of what the person looks like, okay, Kenya will be the better off.
Okay.
So me, it's an question of agendas meeting, not individuals.
As you give me your final shot, your final submission rather, in under 1 minute, what do you also make of whatever is happening within ODM party? You said you took some sabbatical to also mourn Raila Odinga. What do you make of whatever is happening?
Yeah, what's happening in the ODM party is healthy. People are engaging. And I hope that the party will remain united and then resolve the internal contradictions and come up with a way forward, whichever way they want to go. It's their democratic right. But I would love a party which has been around for 20 years not to disintegrate. But what is happening is healthy, it's vibrant, and let it not degenerate into anything beyond just trade-off of ideas of what needs to be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Okiya Omtatah, for, of course, agreeing to be with us this evening.
Thank you.
That was Senator Okiya Omtatah, like he says, a Senator of the Republic of Kenya from the great county of Busia. Many thanks for, of course, making time and, of course, staying with us from 10 p.m. up to now. Until next time, do you have yourself a wonderful night to the team that made this a success. Many thanks. See you again next time. Do have yourself a wonderful night. And, like always, God bless.